Hey there, this is K4A Knowledge for All educational videos and tutorials, and in this video we are going to try to make checkerboard or chessboard pattern in GameMaker with drag and drop blocks like for loop, draw rectangle and so on. For all of you who don't know what checkerboard is or chessboard, it's a simple grid of squares, black and white squares, so we are going to draw them using GameMaker, and we are going to draw I guess white squares because background is by default already black in GameMaker. But if you want to have some kind of, for example, like this red and black square checkerboard, you can do it later as exercise for yourself on your own. Other than that, we have learned how to draw rectangle here recently 2 weeks ago, so we're going to reuse that knowledge, and also we have learned how to draw grid with for loops 2 weeks ago also, so we're going to combine those two skills and also upgrade them a little bit more, because as we will see soon, it's not going to be enough to use this for loop like we did here and a draw block like we did for obj draw grid, but we will actually learn a couple of new things like putting one for loop in another, so it will be like some kind of more improved knowledge, like something more complex. Also, we are going to use this increment with some kind of other numbers rather than one, so for example 2 and so on, so just to show you that you can do that also, and also to initialize them with some other numbers like I think 1, not only 0 like we did here, and so on. So lots of stuff which I hope will explain you how things work not only in GameMaker but in programming and game programming at the general, but also to relax you more on your own ideas and projects, to experiment more, to understand more how these loops and code blocks and code in general works. Okay, so let's go to our project. So first we have blank, some kind of blank 800 times 600 pixel wide screen, works space or scene in GameMaker, and we will try to draw something on it. To draw on it, we will use object which we are going to make right now, new object which I will create with right click, create object, and I will call it obj underscore draw underscore checkerboard. If I typed it, well, yeah, so obj draw checkerboard. Then I will click on room draw and drag and drop that asset into the room, so it will later execute code in the room. For now, as you can see, it's only blank screen. So far so good. Other than that, I will click on my previous obj draw rectangle just to show you how we have learned how to draw rectangle before, but we are going to use that knowledge now just to show it one more time, this time much faster, I hope. So click on events, add events, draw, because we are going to draw on the screen, we need draw event, then try to find draw events blocks. Here they are, drawing, and try to find draw a rectangle. If we just start our game again, nothing will happen. Why? Because our coordinates are 0 0 0 0, so those left, top, right and bottom, if you remember from previous video, those are coordinates. And I will jump to my Autodesk sketchbook just to show you that in on drawing, just to learn it easier. So the coordinate system in GameMaker works like this. Left to right you have this X coordinate, and top to bottom you have this Y. So numbers here are correlated to those two coordinate axes, left, top, right and bottom. What they represent actually is, if you want to draw some kind of rectangle, oops, don't do that, but this, if you want to draw a rectangle on the screen somewhere on GameMaker, you need to, I will use just another color to make it easier, you need to define where this top is, where the bottom is, where the left edge is, where the right edge is, and all of that compared to, as we said, this X and this Y axis. So if you want, for example, that your square starts with 0, you will want to define his left side as what? As 0. You would literally say, okay, go to 0 to the left, and for example, if we want our what else, top or bottom right, yeah, it's a little bit confusing here because they don't say left, right, top, bottom, but they actually say left, top, right, bottom. They have some kind of mixed fields. At least for me it doesn't make much sense. But anyway, left is 0 for my rectangle, and I want top to be 0 also. So top 0, left 0. Again, this is my left and this is my top, and I want them to be at 0. And for example, I want my right, this edge here, to be how much? I will say, for example, I will say 50 pixels because I think we have used that before. So 50 pixels is here on X. So I will try with that to see if that works. Right is 50 and my bottom is same as the first, 50. And again, because I want this shape to be square, I'm using 50-50. If you want it, for example, to be rectangle, you can use 150 or 50 and 100 to make it larger on one position. I don't want to do that. I want just to go with 50 on the right and 50 on the bottom, and I think it will work. Also, I want to check this fill, and because this is default color is white, so instead of creating black square, my square will be white, but other than that it should be on top left 50-50. Okay, I made a mistake obviously. Oh, I typed 500, sorry, my bad. Okay, now it should work. 50-50. Okay, so this works. So we have one square here. That's cool. We have learned that before. But what happens now when I want to create checkerboard pattern like this? So we have learned that first guy, first square, he's working all right. But because we want to repeat that process for example, okay, this is square 0 because computers count from 0, this is square 1, this is square 2, and so on, 3 dots. So because I want to repeat the same process of creating something, when you want to do that, you want to use loop or something like some kind of loop. It doesn't have to be for, it could be while or whatever you like to use or can use in specific situation, but when something repeats so many times, you want to use something to help you do that, and we have used loop for drawing grids, so let's try to find loops. Here it is. We have loop, repeat, while, and for. I will use for loop because I want to show you a couple of different ideas here and techniques which you can use later in your own games for different purposes. So the first thing you should do is put this draw rectangle into for loop, like drag and drop it here into this right edge of for loop, and you will get some kind of blue square on the right. So no, you don't want to put it down, you want to put it to the right. I don't like how this works, and I have told you that so many times, but I have to repeat myself again. It's much easier to do that in Scratch and similar visual drag and drop programs. So sometimes you will just accidentally do this instead of this. Good thing is that you will have this warning that your for loop is empty, but the bad thing is that sometimes you're not going to see that. Okay, so my for loop has 3 fields, and by default it starts from I is 0, that is like first value. I is variable, and that variable starts with 0. It will increment every turn, every loop by 1, and it will work until it hits this condition I is less than 10, and if it hits the 10, then this loop ends and finishes, and it goes out of it and continues the code. We don't have code below, but if you had, for example, like 1, 2, 3, 500 blocks below, you will have to first finish this for loop and then go read other code. So let's just try this to see what will happen on the screen, although I don't expect anything. Okay, so although we have used for loop, it doesn't make any change on the screen. It's like we still have only 1 square. Why is that so? Let's try to analyze, or even better, let's try to analyze our problem here and define it better. So what do I want to do here? I have created 1 square, the black square here, the first one, or to be more precise, this one, 0. And now I want to create number 1, this one, and then later number 2. So if my square was from 0 to 50, and if this distance between them is also square, then this distance should be 50, and that means my square number 1 starts with coordinate 100, and because it's 50 pixels wide, it will end on 150 if I counted well. Same goes with number 2. The distance between 1 and 2 is 50. That means the number 2 starts with 200 and ends with 250, and so on. So I will zoom out a little bit more. We have some data here. This data is in numbers, and you will have to use some kind of mathematics to define the rule which you want to create. But the good thing is that it's very simple mathematics, as we just saw on this example, so don't be afraid. We want somehow to translate these numbers into some kind of rule, and the rule says what? The rule says you will have to use this draw rectangle, and you will have to use this for loop combined to create some kind of function, some kind of rule to draw rectangles in a row. And by default, we will first just copy paste this left top, right bottom. Okay, so we need to define our left top, right and bottom, but by some numbers, but also by this for loop variable I, and to later use that for every other square. So the first square which we have seen here is 0, 0, 50, 50. So the first square, or to be more precise, 0 square is 0, 0, 50, 50. And although you I would recommend that you use your pen and paper, especially if you're a beginner, for these kind of calculations, but also even later, if you're more advanced, you shouldn't be ashamed or afraid of that. So this 0 means this is square 0, so this row is square, so this is square 0, square 1, square 2, and these left, top, right and bottom rows, we put numbers for coordinates there. So 0 for my top and 0 for my first square, because they have started also from 0, right? Here is 0, and 2 also starts with 0, so their top is the same. What else is the same? The bottom is the same for every one of them. I can see that here, and I can see that here. So 0, 1 and 2 squares, they all have the same top and same bottom. So this number, I'm not going to change this one, the top and the bottom. Okay, so I don't have to touch them at all, at least for now. What I want to change is this guy here, and this guy here, and this guy here, and this guy here. And let me put those numbers in my table. So left for my 0 square is here 0, and for my 1 square is 1. Sorry, 100. For my square number 1 it's 100. For my square 2 is how much? 200. So I see that and so on. I see that my left edge will go from 0 to 100 to 200 and so on. So it's some kind of mathematical rule that I have to define here. Same for the right edge. It goes from 50 for the 0 square to 150 to 250. So we have table of our coordinate numbers for our squares. Now let's try to use this guy here, for loop, these variables, this counter and these increments and conditions somehow to define the rule for the for loop. It should be more or less already visible and easy to see if you have some kind of experience, or if you have watched our previous tutorial about how to create grid. But anyway, what do you want to do here? You want to use some kind of math to create rule for this row. Nope. And same for this row, because those two are changing. And what else do I want to use here also? I will probably use number 50. Why? Because that is how big my square is. My square is 50 pixels wide and 50 pixels high, so I want to try to use that number in defining some kind of rule here. So number 0 is how much if you try to use yeah, I will use another layer just to be more obvious. So we want to define those numbers with 50, 0, 100 and 200. So how can I represent 0 with 50? 0 is 50 times 0. 100 is 50 times 2. 200 is 50 times 4. So you see that we already have some kind of pattern here. I will have 50 always, and all I have to do is define this 0 to 4. How is this changing? How is this going? For example, 0 is starting point, for example, this is start. Then how to go from 0 to 2? By adding 2. How to go from 2 to 4? By adding 2. And so on. So you should see those two patterns, that you have the first number 50 always there, it's like some kind of constant, and the other guy here changing. It goes from 0 up, +2, +2, +2. So this number here, you call it variable, you call it I in our case, but it's some kind of variable. And it's called variable because it's changing, as you can see, 0 to 4. It varies from 0 to +2, +2, and so on. So we have that here, and we already have it that it starts with 0, which is great. The problem here is that it goes by 1. I don't want to go by 1, I want to go 2. Okay, that is great, but we have to define a couple of more things, right? We have to define what? We have to define our top and bottom. No, sorry, top and bottom are not changing. We have to define our left and right. So top and bottom are checked, so I'm not going to touch them. Top is 0, bottom is 50. They are great, right? Top and bottom. So all we have to do is change this guy here, left and right. So we have used variable here, and we have used number 50. So let's put that in our for loop. I already said that here, if you have watched closely. Instead of saying 0 to 4, we have used I as variable. So I can write this as 50 times I, where I is 0 to 4. I is 0, it will grow in 2 steps by +2. Great. All I have to do is sign it here. 50 times I. You literally, and we already did that, I think, for, yeah, 50 times I for draw line. So we have just used that one more time here. So 50 times no, I have to find my star. Where is it? Should be on 8, but it isn't. Oh yeah, here it is on plus. 50 times I. Top stays 0, bottom stays 50. And did we define the right section? The right section is, oh no, we didn't, but we will do that fast. How? The same principle like we did here. For the left goes here, and we are not going to type it, but you can see it on your own. From 50, 50, 150, and 250. How are you going to define this with some kind of number? 50 times 1 is 50. 50 times 3 is 150. 50 times 5, right, is 250. I see this guy here is not changing, so this will stay 50. Okay. All I have to do is find the rule here to use some kind of variable. The variable is I, and the problem here is, for example, that it starts with 0 in our case, right? Or yeah, it starts with 0. Okay, so I will have to, and it goes by +2. So yeah, this is kind of tricky. It could be tricky. It starts with 0, I, and it goes in. So the first run will be 0. The second run would be 2. The third one will be 4. Yeah, this is tricky, so pay attention here. I will have to... This is what I wanted to say when I started this tutorial, that not only we're going to change this initialize, but also this increment, and also here in our block of code we are going to change, just to be aware that you can do that also. So I have used here for my left edge some kind of rule, and it works, but the problem here is that it goes from 0 and with step of +2. So 0 +2 +2, and that will go for this guy here, right? So I have to transform 0 into 1, transform 2 into 3, transform 4 into 5. How to do that? By adding 1, right? 0 plus 1 is 1. 0, 2 plus 1 is 3. 4 plus 1 is 5. So what am I doing here? One more time. I have these conditions here. this initialize 0, this increment +2, but they will not work for my right edge. If I type just I, it will be, and we can try to see that on the screen, it will go from 0 to 4 and so on. I don't need 0, I don't need 2, I don't need 4, I need 1, 3, 5. So going from 0 to 1, I need to add 1, from 2 to 3, add 1, and so on. So every step we're going to add 1, but let me just show you how this looks without that. So we will get something on the screen, but not as we wanted. Yeah, some kind of lines, which is crazy because our left and right are the same. So we have lines. I don't want to do that. I want to do what? I want to say add 1 on I. So yeah, and I will put that into square, just not to confuse GameMaker or myself. Cool. So we have one thing here, and yeah, this is like left to right. Okay. So again, if you have created grid before with draw line, you have used some kind of default initialize condition and increment by 1. Also, we have used some kind of coordinates x and y, either by typing them like here 0 and 800, or either by adding I variable from loop into the code. But this time we have changed the increment. It doesn't go in steps by 1. Why? Because our squares need to have empty space between them. So that's why we used increments of 2, and that's why this whole mathematic calculation is important. And the other thing which we also changed is that not only that we have put I into our draw rectangle code, but we also added I plus 1. Why? Because we had left edge defined with I and right edge defined with I plus 1. It's simple as that, but it can be confusing again, because if you're, I don't know, afraid of or haven't learned that before, so you don't know how to see it, how to understand it. So we have one line of squares on our screen. Okay, so this looks cool. The next thing which we need to do is to repeat this couple of times. So we have these guys here. Now I want them here. Okay, we can do that later, but maybe we should just skip this whole line and then create them here, and so on. So we want to create something like this. This first row of square is great, but we need second, third, and so on. So let's try to do that in code. That should be relatively simple, right? Maybe not, but the problem here is, right, to how are you going to do that? One thing would be just to, we have learned that before, to copy, paste, and then change what? I want to change my top and bottom only. So I want to change my top and bottom to what? Okay, let's go here. So Now I am interested in this guy here, in coordinate y. Because why? Because I'm pushing my squares up and down, up and down. I don't want to change their x, I just want to change their y coordinates. So if the first guy, like we did for the x, same goes with the y. If the first guy was top 0 and bottom 50, this guy here will be top 100 and bottom 150. I think so. Let's try that. So top 100, bottom 150, and all of that in copy pasted for loop draw rectangle. So we have copy pasted what we made first, change the top and bottom, and let's see if that works. Yeah, we have another row of squares on the screen. So this works, this looks great. What is the problem? This is the second row. If I want the third row, I would have to copy, paste. So you see how this becomes already a bit complex, and we only have 3 rows for our screen. Imagine you have endless screen. You would have some kind of endless number of code blocks or some huge screen. You will get crazy. Why? Because not only you have to copy paste all of it, you will have to calculate all of those and change them manually. And not only you will have to calculate them, you will sometimes make the mistake because you will get tired and bored and so on. So you will type, instead of maybe 200, you will type 250 here and so on. So you can do that, but it's not recommended if you have lots of things to create on the screen. So you can do this step by step like this, but the problem is, again, this is like only 3 blocks of 3 rows of blocks. And imagine I have like I think we have 800 by 600, so it's like 16 times 12. So I have to copy paste this first group of blocks, these 2 guys. I have to copy paste them 16 times for my width, I think, and 12 times for my height. So it's 28 copy paste, and every time we will have 2 blocks, so it's 28 times 2, it's 56 blocks if I have counted well, just for my small 800 times 600 pixel wide scene. 56 blocks. You would probably get something wrong, so I will delete this guy and I will maybe, yeah, I will delete this one too. So we are back to our start. We only have 1 row, and let's try to find better solution. Better solution is we have created something on our screen, and okay, let's first of all I want to change condition. The condition by default was 10, but because my scene is 800, when I divide that with 50 pixels, because my square is 50 pixels wide, I will have 16 of those, I think. So I will change the condition to 16 just to have the squares all the way to the right. Okay, so great. So another thing which we want to do now is, yeah, I want to somehow to, I like how I created this, but the problem here is that I have to copy paste this row of squares 12 times in a row, one below others. So 12 times like this. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, and all the way to the bottom there are 12 rows of squares. So as we did before with our squares, going left to the right and using for loop, we can do that for going top to bottom using for loop. But where is the catch and what's the problem for you if you haven't done this before? All we have to do is use what we have created here. So code for this guy, and I will hide these two. So use the code for this guy here and put it into for loop. And this can be scary or crazy for you. Why? Because we have used for loop to define these squares. So I'm going to put the for loop into the for loop. So we will have two for loops, one in another. That's what can be scary or new to some of you, but again, just think about in some kind of abstraction where you say, okay, I have created code for this, I want to copy paste that code here and here 12 times in a row. How to do that? By for loop. Okay, simple as that. So all the code I have here, put it in the for loop. Let's do that. Find the for loop, here it is, and put this guy in it, and that's it. You just have to define again some kind of rules, so it's not just that, but it's very, the biggest idea here is just to put it into for loop. So for loop one time, for loop second time, and that's what could be some kind of revelation to some of you. So what do I want to do? I want to start copy pasting my code here. How many times? 12 times, I think. Why? Because my height is 600 divided by 50, because that is how our square is. High is 12, so I will change the condition to 12. And another thing, because that's another thing which you are going to learn, because the variable here is I, and that's the default name for the variable, and I have drag and dropped another for loop, the same variable goes here. So I will have to change that, and I will change it to J. You will see that in most of tutorials or other people's code. So the first for loop goes with I, second with J, and so on. So I have created those two blocks to create row of squares. Now I want to copy paste them how many times? 12 times, right? And another catch here is that, what do I have here? I have empty space here, empty space here, empty space here, which is exactly how big? 50 pixels, 50 pixels, and so on. So I'm not going to copy paste this guy here. No, I will do that later like this, but I want this guy here exactly 50 pixels below. So I need to create some kind of empty space here. So we have to be aware of that. And also, how am I going to define this Let's create new layer. How am I going to define this copy pasting on my Y? The first guy is going from what? From 0. Where is my table? Here it is. Okay, so yeah, top and bottom. Oops. So the first guy, just a second, top and bottom. Yeah, I'm interested in only in top and bottom here. Top is 0, bottom is what? The first guy here, top is 0, bottom is 50. The second guy here, the second square row of squares, top is 100, bottom is 150. And the third one is 200 and 250. So we have some kind of information again, which we need to translate into some kind of function, some kind of rule. Okay. And this is our zero row. Then this is 0, this is 1, this is empty, sorry. So this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So what do you see here? I have 0 to print 2, 4. Again, some kind of rule which goes in increments by what? 0 plus 2, 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 6, and so on. So we will have to add plus 2 to our variable. Our variable is j now, it's not I, so be aware of that. So j plus 2, okay. J starts from 0, cool. So we have defined the rule, I think we have defined the rule how to print with j variable here, okay, but we still have to define our top and bottom. Where do we have our top and bottom? We have him here in draw rectangle, so we have to be careful here again, because we have two things here, j and I, two variables. We have used I variable before, it works great, but now we have j variable which we have to put into top and bottom. Why? Because that's what we are changing here, top, bottom, simple as that. Okay, so here it is, this table, just we have to define it somehow again by some kind of rule. This is my 0 square, this is my number 1 square, number 2, and so on. So again, the smartest thing would be to use 50 like we did before. Why? Because my square is 50 pixels in height and every row is 50, 50, 50, 50, 50 pixels in height. So let's try to define those numbers here by 50, those coordinates. So I'm going to type them here just because I don't have any much space, but you will see it yourself. Just watch one row, either top or bottom. Let's define top first. 0, I can type 0 is 50 times 0. 100, it's 50 times 2. 200, it's 50 times 4. So 50 and this number here is 0, 2, 4. Oh, it's same as here, so I can use the same j variable. Cool. I will try to write it down like 50 times j. Okay, so that was top, I think. 50 times j. Oops. Yeah, you can see how it's easy to create some kind of mistake just by accident. When I have typed j as a letter, I got some kind of recommendation by GameMaker, and although I tried to click out of it, I somehow clicked on it, and I have copy pasted some function which was recommended by GameMaker, which I didn't want to do, so just be aware of that. So we have defined top. Let's define bottom. Okay, so bottom, how are you going to define these numbers here? Again, 50 times what? 50 times 1 is 50. 50 times 3 and 50 times 5. So we are defining coordinates for bottom with 50. 50 times 1 is 50. 50 times 3 is 150. 50 times 5 is 250. So we have plus 2 again here. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. But the problem here is that this guy here is 1. It's not 0. We have seen that our j goes with 0, so it's not going to be our j variable, but what we can use other than j? I think yeah, maybe j plus 1, but oh yeah, j plus 1 would be, yeah, I thought I could use I, but yeah. So I will write that here just to make it more clear. So we have numbers 1, 3 and 5. They start with 1 but go in plus 2, and j goes from 0 and then goes into 2 and then goes into 4. So this guy here is j. How are we going to turn j into from 0 to 1? By adding 1. How are we going to turn 2 plus 2 into 3? By adding 1. How are we going to create 5 from 4? By adding 1. So we can use again j plus 1. So from 0 to 1 is plus 1, from 2 to 3 is plus 1, and so on. So yeah, this is probably for most of you just too complex or crazy, but I'm trying to explain it in most simplest way. Anyway, so we're at the end, so just stay with me. So we have defined here bottom with j plus 1, I think we have. And yeah, actually this is it for our vertical copy pasting. This is for, let me shut this down. Okay, so this is for our every second row of checker. Yeah, cool. So this already looks great, but I think I have started this like literally 1 hour ago, so this could be a little bit too much for you, so we're going to speed up a little bit more. But actually, yeah, you should speed up now when you define everything like this. So I'm going to merge this down, merge with below, and maybe, yeah, maybe duplicate it one more time and then merge. Yeah, okay, so copy paste. I'm just trying to create some fast graphics for you too. So from these guys here, how are you going to push them into here, which is what we need? So from first, third and fifth into second, fourth and sixth, or to be more precise, sorry, this was number 0, right? So okay, so did we have, nope, I was almost sure we had, yeah, here it is, 0, 2, 4, but I will make it here. So this row was 0, this row was 2, this row was 4, and now you need to define 1, 3, 5, right? And same with these guys here. Okay, oh, okay. These guys were 0, 2 and 4, 0, 2, 4, and we need now 1, 3 and 5. So we will use the same code, only this time we will change what kind of parameters. I will instead going from 0 here with J and I will start with 1, and instead of going, yeah, the same, everything will, other than that, I think everything else will stay the same. Great thing. So for loop into for loop to create every second row of squares. I want to copy paste all of that, push it little bit below, little bit below, right, and push it below, below and right, and that's it. But everything else stays the same. So copy, paste, change what? I don't want to start with 0, but we said here go with 1, because 0 we did that already here. This was 0. So start with 1 and go with increments of how much? Plus 2. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 2 is 5. Same here. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 2 is 5. So one of those loops is for vertical, one of those is for horizontal, but we're going to change both of those. J is 1, I is 1, and J goes from 1 to 12, okay. I goes from 1 to 16, okay. Plus 2, plus 2. I think everything else stays the same. Zoom out, so 6 blocks for complete checkerboard. Yeah, great. This, I guess this is confusing for most of you still, but one more time. The most important thing here is that we have learned or at least try to learn, that you can put one for loop into another, this guy into this guy. Not only that, we have learned that variables, they don't have to start with 0 like this guy j and this guy but they can start from any number you want, or even put, later we will see that, which is even crazy, I think you can even put another variables into this variable. So but for now, just remember that I don't have to start with 0. Sometimes I will want to go with 1 when I want to skip this 0, I want to skip number 2 and so on. So I start with 0 sometimes, but sometimes I can go with 1. Other than that, so we have learned one thing. Second thing, third thing is that you can add +2, not only +1 like we did before with when we created grid, but you can increment in any number you want. We used number 2 here because we have every second row either 1, 3, 5, 7 or 0, 2, 4, 6 and so on, but you can increment in any number you want. Other than that, when you use 2 for loops, you will have to change the name of variables. We used I and j, and that is what you will use mostly in workflow and most of the code which you will see from other people, like I don't know, tutorials or assets you buy online. You will see that they use I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q and so on. So you can call them whatever you like, but that's some kind of unwritten rule. And other than that, again, you can use as many for loops one in another, and I do not recommend going crazy. You can see how even this is probably too much for most of you, but in theory you can do that as many times as you want. And also we have used only draw rectangle because that's what we needed here, but instead of this guy here you can add as much code as you need, as different code as you need. And not only that, but you can reuse even this code here to create some kind of I don't know, instead of creating checkerboard here with squares, we could use create instance block, create instance, and create some kind of object, like I don't know, you create some kind of coin. Let's try that. Yeah, but now it will yeah, it would be actually let me try just to copy paste, although I think this will not work. But if, because I'm just going crazy now, you could just, yeah, actually it works some kind of. So you can create some kind of rule, some kind of procedure to create some kind of pickup asset for your game, or some kind of collectible, or some kind of enemy, or spawner, or maybe some kind of turret. So for example, we have watched some kind of tower defense games recently and so on. So you can instead of these squares, you can, for example, just disable this one and create row of some kind of row of turrets or towers like this for your game, where your player has to go around them and so on. So what I want to say, possibilities are endless. We have just used some kind of block for drawing, but it doesn't have to be that. And that's it. I think 1 hour, which is again too much, but I think these features which we have learned, and skills and techniques, are actually something basic for programming, and for you to advance into more complex stuff. So even if you find this tutorial unuseful to you, just try to find something similar to see how you can combine for loop in for loop, and how you can play a little bit with these variables to change them their names, because you will have one loop in another, but also change incrementation and change how you instantiate something on the screen by using those variables. Because as you can see here, we have actually used both I and J for drawing rectangle, and not only that, but we have changed them because our task was that way. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you in next one. Sorry if this was too long. Bye for now.